Amazing.
That worked perfectly.
Perfect timing. You want to do the introduction, Russ? Do the intro.
We are live. Boom. Do you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Men's Radio Station. I'm what's left of Russ Kane. Now, here's the thing, gang, is that every time I'm ready to do a 6 o'clock show, my Wi-Fi, I'm sure by now, Ollie Mammon, star of the show, thinks that I just don't love him anymore and just don't want him on the show. No, it's the Wi-Fi, which drives me absolutely potty. So anyway, welcome to the ABC of CBD. Ollie, are you there? Over.
I'm here. Yo, what's up, everybody?
Wow.
Welcome to episode 4. I am so excited.
Jamie Barkley, are you there? Over.
I'm here, Russ.
And
how we doing?
They are there. They are there. Ollie is either frozen. Blink. No. Ollie, blink. Let me. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ooh, that was worrying. So professional. Welcome to everybody.
And I think we've just lost Russ. So, welcome to the ABC of CBD, everybody. My name's Oliver Mammon. This is Jamie Bartley. What we're going to do is that is Jamie Bartley. I have to point in the opposite direction to point at him. Very strange. Yes, I'm Ollie Mammon. Russ is having some technical difficulties, but he'll be with us very shortly. Welcome to the ABC of CBD, sponsored by the Tincture Club. You can scan the QR code in the bottom left-hand corner, type in the code Men's Radio to receive 10% off the most affordable CBD tincture on the marketplace. Today is episode 4. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined us on episodes 1, 2, and 3. If you haven't seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, I recommend you go and see them, even if only for a short moment of time. It gives you a bit more of an understanding about what we're trying to achieve here. This program is basically to help guide people through this convoluted, complex world of cannabinoids. And I am your co-host, usually with Russ, who I'm sure will be back in about 1 minute. But anyway.
Right on cue.
It's like magic, isn't it, boys? It's like magic. I don't know why I disappeared there. Absolutely no idea. Anyway, Ollie, you're doing this better and better every week. I can fade away.
No, I don't want you to fade away. You're so important, man. You don't understand,
Russ. No, I'm not important. I'm not important.
Russ, you disappear. This whole thing goes sinking. Trust me.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't go south. It doesn't go south, man. It doesn't. It totally doesn't go south. I'm very excited, very, very excited, because we've got our first guest ever. This is episode 3 or episode 4? I've lost track. Episode 3, isn't it?
4.
Is it? Did I wait during episode 3? Anyway, this is episode 4, and I got to say that I first met Ollie Mammon months ago before the world went raving mad, and I thought this is going to be so much fun. And for once, I wasn't wrong. So welcome along, everybody, here. As you heard Ollie saying, this is all sponsored by the Tincture Club. So you can go onto the Men's Radio website and just put in your code, and it's all there. You got the, whatever they call that special square little code that looks like a graphic, and then you get 10% off. It's all terrific. Now, our special guest today is enjoying... I'm disappointed, Jamie, because normally there's bookshelves that people come on to show how very intellectual they are. You've got filing cabinets. Who the hell has filing cabinets in 2020? I keep thinking it's 2021, but it's very impressive. It's either that or your socks.
No, to be honest, it's various paperwork, but it's actually for distribution of different products. It's for sending out a lot of the products that we sell. So it's not actually for the paperwork.
Oh, well, we're impressed. You got paper. Anyone remember that? Anyway, Ollie, back to you, and please introduce your special guest. I know you're really very excited about it, and quite frankly, so am I.
So I've got a guest, people. I mean, how mental is that? Who would have thought? Like, literally, and I'll be honest with you, Jamie actually asked for this. I did not even force him to be here, so he's brought this completely upon himself. Okay, so...
only himself to blame, Ollie. Only himself to blame.
Exactly, only himself to blame. So we have been, over the last 3 weeks, talking about CBD, and my opinion is you can't really know where you're going unless you know where you've come from. So the whole point of this episode is to basically understand where CBD has come from. And it's about understanding the plant from which it came. Now, there's 2 fields of debate, which we will have the debate later on in the series about synthetic cannabinoids and natural cannabinoids. Synthetic cannabinoids which are produced in a laboratory, and natural cannabinoids which are produced by plants. I had a really beautiful chat with Jamie on Tuesday. It was a 15-minute chat, which turned into like a 2.5 hour, just basically discourse about life.
Jamie, you have my deepest, sympathy, because there is someone says, give Ollie a quick chat. And I go, you cannot have in one sentence the word quick chat and Ollie. You have to set aside an hour minimum.
Russ, I loved it. It's great. Ollie's great. He's got so much understanding.
He is fantastic. He's a force of nature.
So much knowledge and so much passion, and I love that. I respect that massively. So I've got all the time in the world, for it.
I love it. Jamie's sitting there as if he's not as much of a pain in the ass as me. I mean, like literally, I'll be honest with you. Right, like once we get started, you're going to see that. I'll be honest with you. Like if God forbid I ever die, Jamie, you're taking over this show. All right. If I get hit by a truck tomorrow, the co-host of the ABC of CBD will be Jamie. Tincture Club still the sponsor.
But
okay.
Jamie,
I mean, like you're going to see this dude's going to blow your mind today, man. He's really is
my
incredible.
mind is prepared to be blown. Go ahead. All right. Go on. Off you go.
So basically, Jamie is a hemp grower. All right, that's the main thing. So today we're going to learn about hemp, where CBD come from. CBD comes from hemp. Jamie is a hemp grower. His company is called Unite Hemp. They're one of the largest producers of hemp in the UK. And he has this incredible story. So I'm not going to kind of cut him up too much. But the main thing is like I say, so you have this debate between synthetic and natural. Today we're going to focus on natural cannabinoids. We're going to focus on natural, on the natural idea of it, and we're going to focus on hemp and how the view of hemp and basically all the information which Jamie has got stored behind those beautiful locks of his, and we're going to kind of like try and get as much information out there to the users as possible, because it's the plant is where it all comes from, and the plant needs to be understood, and also the multi-versatility of such a plant, which is it's just going to blow your mind what hemp is capable of, and it's going to blow your mind the things which Jamie's doing and the things which Jamie's involved in. And I think it's very important for that topic to be on the map, and I've got a beautiful summary.
Before we say anything else, Mr. Ollie Mammon, is Sharon McGovern, an extraordinary woman who, through her talent and skills, a few months ago changed my life. She's a big fan of the show now, and she says, "You're late today, Rush. Much love to you all," from Sharon. And then she says, "Oh my God, got it now. I'm a fan of CBD due to spinal arthritis and insomnia." Believe me, this is a very, very influential person, a fascinating woman, but that's for another time. And
Sharon, I'm really happy Sharon, I'm really happy you found what you needed. I mean, please connect with me. I mean, if you ever want to chit chat just for the sake of chit chatting, I mean, I'd love to hear your story. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I really I love it when people tune in to watch my face. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I wouldn't think that anyone would want to, but I mean, it's pretty amazing. So, but seriously, thank you so much, Sharon. And hopefully we have a conversation in the future. So let's just move straight on to it. Jamie, tell us about yourself.
Okay, so my name's Jamie Bartley. As Unite Hemp, we've got 1,700 acres licensed in the UK for cultivation of hemp. My fascination, I suppose, with hemp came around. I come from a contaminated land background, and I started focusing on hemp as a very sustainable way that we could clean up contaminated land potentially. But then once I really started looking at hemp, I understood, whoa, this plant can do so much more than just clean up contaminated land potentially. And it just enticed me amazingly. I did a lot of research. I really started drilling down into factually correct sort of peer-reviewed research papers globally that have focused on hemp and understood the history of hemp, and just really started absorbing knowledge around it. And then very much we've built a model of business around what we feel is a good fit for the UK model at the moment. But then we're also equally working on various different global projects at the moment that interact around hemp cannabis in different ways, depending on.
Can I jump in there, Jamie? Because I like to ask the questions that I hope our listeners would like to ask as well. When you say, because I know the square root of nothing about land and contaminant, I'm a city boy. So contaminated land, contaminated by. Just give an idea of what was the problem with it to start.
So I mean, contaminated land can be from any previous man-made, usually. So industrial uses, that could be for a coal mine, a metal works. It could be an area of land that's been used for disposal of wastes, contaminated waste. So it's anything that's had a previous. I mean, if you want to get a technical terminology, it's an anthropogenic influence.
I was about to say that. But I thought
you asked for it,
Russ. All anthropogenic means is man-made. So, so any man-made influence.
Ollie, he's getting on my nerves. I'll be honest with you, he's getting on my nerves.
The guy's going to blow your mind. Literally, your mind will not be able to comprehend the words which come out of his homie's mouth.
Yeah, it's a bit of a brain box, like you're so slow, right? Anyway, Jamie, and the other thing is, did you start growing the hemp? Did I understand you correctly? Just to clean up the land to start with? That was the idea? Is it like
that was what started my research path on around hemp. That I was looking in a theoretical basis around hemp and its ability to clean up contaminated land. Very quickly, I realized there's so much more it can do, and there's so much more benefit we can have by using hemp for multiple different uses. My biggest passion is growing hemp on a global scale to have the biggest disruptive impact positively in decarbonising multiple different sectors. So it's such a sustainable crop. If we use it for as many different things as we can, it really promotes that bio-based economy, that way that we can ultimately be a long-lasting planet that survives, and not everyone be living on sand dunes in 100 years' time.
There's one thing which is quite an important point, which I want to throw in there. So when me and Jamie were on the phone the other day, we were talking about, like vast uses of CBD. Now I'm going to get to a point here. The vast use, there's probably 1,000 different uses for CBD, and like if you've got all cannabinoids, thousands of uses for all cannabinoids. Now cannabinoids are one aspect of what hemp can do. Now we were talking with Jamie. He was like, forget about, and I know you're helping people. I know this is what you do, but forget about just the cannabinoid application, because there are 50,000 applications for the hemp plant. And then I was like,
50,000?
So let's play a little game, okay? Let's play a little game. Jamie, 60 seconds, okay? You've got 60 seconds. I want you to name as many possible uses for hemp as possible. And go.
Insulation, construction blocks, a replacement for aggregate in concrete. Textiles, it can be used for CBD, it can be used for multiple different cannabinoids, it can be used as a nutrition protein source for sustainable protein, it can be used as a nutritional oil for food and also for cosmetics. It can be used in paint. We can make biodiesel out of it, we can make bioethanol out of it, we can make green hydrogen out of it. We can also
keep it up. You've got 30 seconds left.
Animal feed, biochar is a great one. If we churn it into biochar and put it back into the ground, that gives our topsoil another 100, 200 years worth of lifespan. Plastics. So we've got PLA, polylactic acid, derived from hemp, no problem at all. Starch derived from hemp. Sugar, if you want to derive sugar from hemp, because it's got a very high starch content, you can derive a lot of sugar from it. We can make a syrup from it if you want. We can make a very sustainable animal feed.
Fine. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 25, 28. You've got 28 uses. However, every single one of your uses was an overarching umbrella. So you said as a sugar can then be transformed into 1,000 different products. So you've got here probably 28 different products, which could probably have 1,000 uses underneath it.
It could be that raw bio-based building block.
That was fun, wasn't it? Admit that was fun.
Yeah,
admit you enjoyed that.
Thanks for the curveball, Ollie. But yeah,
no problem. So
I wouldn't mind knowing that was coming. I might have wrote the list.
I just want to throw
Jamie,
out.
I got to tell you that Bradley Walsh will be on the phone to me soon. He'd be worried about his job now that Ollie's decided.
Why? What have I done?
Nothing. I'm saying Bradley Walsh is the best game show host, for decades, and
challenge
suddenly
accepted. Challenge accepted. What, are you telling me he's better than Brucey?
Oh yeah, I much prefer.
Look me in the eye and tell me that anyone's better than Brucey.
Bradley Walsh, I prefer to the way Brucey did it, over and out.
I love Bruce. So one thing I actually want to throw out there, I don't know if you ever heard about this, Jamie. So basically, in France, about 5 years ago, they genetically modified. They trained a hemp plant to have a larger root structure, so it can pick up gold and where they used to mine. You know about this, right?
I've looked at phytoremediating for heavy metals. Yeah, it's something I've got a couple of sort of research
freaking awesome. So what happens is basically when you mine in the land, like the soil left over from mining still contains valuable metals. And what they've done is they've found a genetic of hemp which has a large enough root structure to absorb the gold particles into the hemp. Then they take the hemp plants, dry them, burn them, and then you've got gold. And it's 100% eco-friendly mining. There's no fracking, there's no toxins, there's nothing like this. And literally only during your list, that's why I was writing, because I'm like, oh my God, literally flashback. And I just had the flashback back to the day when that came up. I mean, literally the uses of hemp are freaking insane. But Jamie, continue.
Well, just on that note, Ollie, this one of the projects I'm looking at is actually to repair damaged land that's been illegally mined for gold in some of the sub-Saharan African countries. And they do that gold mining by using mercury. That's what they use to separate the gold from the ore. But mercury then it doesn't degrade at all. It accumulates in the groundwater, and they've got enormous problems with birth deficiencies in a lot of these countries because of the accumulation of mercury. But for exactly the same reason that hemp will hyperaccumulate gold, it will hyperaccumulate mercury.
That's incredible.
So we can undo the damage that's been done by the illegal mining, take the mercury out, and also take any of the residual gold out, which funds the whole project.
Jamie, let me jump in. I want to ask you a question because you're clearly like a total authority on this. Why was hemp given such a bad reputation?
Wait, Russ, there's a plan to the episode. Please, there's a plan. I beg you. Go on, answer him. I feel bad now.
No, carry on.
I'll happily answer that. Or I'll happily
answer it. It's important.
I mean, the biggest reason is for prohibition originally in 1920s was a few main factors, and they were big pharma, because big pharma knew that hemp or cannabis, totally, because hemp is just a more normalized word than cannabis, but cannabis had a potential impact on the pharmaceutical industry in a massive way. Big forestry.
And when did they know that from, Jamie? They knew that from when? From Prohibition era?
That's why Prohibition was driven by big pharma, big forestry, and big oil. Big oil mainly by DuPont. They've just invested massively into oil for petrochemicals for their nylon, because they just managed to sort of scale nylon, and therefore hemp as a viable alternative compared to oil for bio-based polymers was a big issue, and also textiles from the fibers. And then big forestry. Go on.
Just to kind of clarify for listeners who are unaware, because I'm pretty sure that's what when you say prohibition, you're not talking about alcohol prohibition, are you?
No,
you're talking about cannabis prohibition. And it's very important that we throw this out there. And cannabis prohibition started about
just after alcohol prohibition ended. It was an ulterior thing for Harry. There's a guy called Harry Anslinger who basically headed up the whole alcohol prohibition for the federal government in the US. And when alcohol prohibition ended, they realized they had a big federal department of agents basically that had nothing to do. And then when they combined that with a lobbying from big pharma, big forestry, and big oil against hemp, it was the perfect time to coin the racial slur of marijuana, point at Mexican people and say, this is a negative, this is a bad demonized drug. You had all the cannabis rhetoric that was going on around the prohibition and the reefer madness type campaigns that were media wide, and all of that drove to hemp and cannabis all being prohibited pretty much globally, other than in China. China continued their development. Other than that, it was prohibited globally and demonized as well, which is why we still today we say, me and Ollie say the words all day every day: cannabis, hemp, cannabis. I use the word hemp because it's more normalized than cannabis in a lot of conversations with people I know that will be more comfortable with the terminology hemp. But ultimately, it is all one thing. And the reaction to that word is still driven from that prohibition rhetoric.
Totally.
But through education, through exactly what you guys are doing, through this education, through this sensible discussion on factually correct information, that's how we allow people whose minds are open to be changed and open to be engaged and educated will eventually get past that.
So I'm a sociologist at heart. That's what I studied at uni. And there's a sociologist, a social psychologist called Foucault. And Foucault discussed the idea of discourse and the narrative of the time, and how there's always a discourse, and the discourse is always true. So you go back 300, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, the world was flat. Everyone knew the world was flat. That was the discourse of the time. And then what happened is 100 years later, some guys are like, oh, mental. We're not flat, we're round. Okay, we're a sphere. Okay, and then what happens is maps changed, and like science changed, and the entire view of the world changed because we changed one little rhetoric. We changed one fact of discourse. Now, over the last 100 years, there has been a discourse that hemp, cannabis combined, whatever you want to call it, as this mother plant, is demonized. And this demonization was taught in schools, and this demonization was taught, through primary and secondary socialization. Like literally we're ingrained in it as kids. I remember the first time I brought home a hemp soap, and I gave it to my mum as a present. She looked at me like, c'est cannabis, like it's cannabis, like it's like, I remember we went to America like 12 years ago, maybe more, 24 years ago. The Body Shop was doing their first ever hemp range, and it was hemp is hope, not dope. And they had to kind of change the mentality of people. But what happens is people don't change. So there's this discourse now. There is this narrative belief that cannabis is one thing and hemp is something else. Right. Type into Google hemp, and the first thing which comes up is cannabis sativa. Why? Because the Latin name for hemp is cannabis, and the Latin name for cannabis is cannabis. Now, hemp is just a man-given name, a man-given narrative, a man-given discourse to a terminology which should be deepened and should be darkened. But fact of the matter is, it's not. It's just man-made interpretation of a plant which has grown in the ground for hundreds of thousands of years with hundreds of thousands of applications. And it's not even about cannabis for medicine, cannabis for rope, cannabis for textiles, cannabis for this cement concrete which they do out of it now. It's not hemp, it's cannabis. And we need to try and create this understanding that cannabis can be a drug you smoke, but cannabis can also be the material your toilet seat is made out of, and it can also be what you feed to your birds, and it can also be what you tile your roof in. And cannabis is the mother name of the plant. And this is one thing which I kind of wanted to leave it to the end, because that was basically the conclusion of the episode. But I mean, like, it's cool. We get to have the chat now, and it's important. Sorry.
No, absolutely, Ollie. And just one thing I'll say, the word canvas, as in sails, canvas, comes from cannabis. Because all the sails and all the ropes that the British fleet basically conquered the world with back in King Henry VIII's time was made from cannabis. It's just it was still terminized.
I knew that the ropes were. I didn't know the sails were.
No, the whole word, the word canvas comes from the word, comes from cannabis, because that's what they're made from. Yeah,
it's pretty incredible. So now look back onto CBD, because we've talked about like hemp and cannabis. Does all hemp contain CBD, Jamie?
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, some cultivars would contain a lot more than others, but to a certain degree, yes. CBD, I mean, it's one of the cannabinoids that's present. There's 115 odd cannabinoids, or phytocannabinoids, if we term them correctly, that have been identified so far within cannabis. And again, hemp's cannabis, so hemp has cannabinoids, yes.
When we say cannabis now, we mean hemp. From this episode on, for the rest of time, when we use the word cannabis, we mean hemp. Why? Because hemp is the mother, or cannabis is the mother, whichever way you look at it, they're exactly the same plant. And then it's just about what specific variant. You use the word, I used the word strain, but what word did you just use?
Cultivar.
Cultivar. I love that word. Russ, do you not love that word?
Cultivar. It sounds like a sort of 1970s aftershave.
I like that. Cultivar.
That's a very cultivar.
Cultivar.
Be that. Right. Okay.
Makes it smell like a farmer. Makes it smell good. Makes it smell like a nice and good like.
Hemp farming.
Gonna go down the shops, get me some of that cultivar. Gonna spray it around. The missus gonna love that. So basically, sorry, I'm really excited today. I told you, I'm really excited to have my first guest on the show. It's freaking awesome. And also, I don't have to be so serious because I get to he gets to be the serious one. Jamie's like everything. Like if Jamie screws up, if today's episode's bad, it's all Jamie's fault. Which is kind of, you know how amazing that
you
is?
understand that's how I go through life, because the previous 4 episodes, your 3 episodes were bad. It's all Ollie's fault.
All my fault.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's such a lovely way to live. It's such a nice way to live.
Blame everybody else for everything. It's the main thing.
I'm fine with that, guys. I'm fine with that.
So when you are creating, so as a farmer, all right, because this blew my mind the other day because I didn't even think about this. When growing a crop, can you give us a little bit of a like a stage by stage process? Because you know, like you when we were talking on Tuesday, you were talking about how when you grow your crop, there's like 7 stages to it. And it's not just plant a seed and grow. There's so many tests and so much sort of analysis which you have to do. And, you know, I assume that based on what you're growing, the analysis also will be different. So if you're growing a crop for CBD extraction, what will be one type of analysis? If you're growing crop for textiles extraction, it's another type of analysis. For biofuel, it's another type of analysis. But can you give us like a basic overarching sort of process in which you will go through in order to create a product?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything with hemp. You need to start at the end and say what product or what process do you want to discuss, because then we can go through all the stages required to go to that product. So maybe give me a product.
Why don't we choose it, Jamie, so that you say you're going to supply Ollie for his laboratory.
Okay,
so we've got the plants in the ground. As I said, walk me through it, because everybody else will be trying to catch up, and if I can follow it, everyone can. So we've got the plants in the ground, and right, off you go.
Okay, so the plants are in the ground. If we're growing in fields, we're drilling the seed in the ground in around middle of April time, and then that's it. Don't touch it. Leave it. Let the sun shine. Let it do its work, and then you come to, if you're going for Ollie for cannabinoids, we'll come back to why we can't a little bit later, because we can't actually legally give Ollie the products that he can produce. We'll do that bit in a minute, but we would go in, then we'd harvest the flower and the leaf around mid-August time, and we'd dry that flower and leaf material and ensure that the moisture content's down to about 8%, 9%, maybe even 10%, but around that sort of level of moisture content. But again, without adding too much heat.
Are you picking it by hand? Do you use a tractor? I'm trying to get an idea of the scale.
No, I mean, to give you an idea, Russ, if we grew 380 acres of hemp in the UK on an industrial scale, so that's how we'd normally grow in the UK. Lots of plants very close together. So think a field of hemp very tightly planted together. We would then go in with almost a combine harvester and take that flower and leaf off, but we'd only need to go through that 380 acres to supply the whole of the UK industry.
How much CBD hypothetically could you get from 380 acres?
I haven't got the figure on top of my head.
Of course,
I did the calculation a couple of weeks ago for a project we were talking about, and in essence, enough CBD to supply a 315 million pound UK CBD industry.
Wow, blimey! Nice comment from Nick Lynn. Harvesting is a pain, but so worth it.
Yeah, Nick works for me, and Nick. When we were doing our research last year, we did 5 cultivars at 11 densities and modeled a lot of data around
the research and the data. This is what I wanted you to share, because this is the bit which is just like, sorry, what? So like this is what I want you to go into this, because even me, like I'm quite knowledgeable, and I literally never even thought about this.
Right. So the headline reason why hemp is because 1 acre of hemp will absorb 25 times the carbon dioxide, the CO2 out the atmosphere during its 4 months growth cycle that the same area of rainforest would.
Good
25 times the same area of rainforest. So then when you embody that carbon from the atmosphere into the plant and use that material for insulation products, or use that material from a construction product, you're locking that carbon up. And that's the bit we need to do to to stop global warming, to sort climate change, is take carbon out of the atmosphere. And that's why hemp is the solution to so many different problems, if we use it, that has a massive net effect overall on the future of the planet.
Now, you can make biofuel out of hemp, can't you?
Yes,
and you can make biofuel out of rapeseed. Now, when you use rapeseed, how much CO2 extraction is there from rapeseed?
Very little compared to hemp. If, for instance, as well, for talking about biofuel, grain is what's predominantly used to produce ethanol, and grain will yield around 42% ethanol when you ferment it. If you ferment the hemp shiv, which is the woody part of the hemp straw, so you separate the straw, take the fiber off, we use that for something else, textiles, insulation, and then you pre-treat the shiv, and then when you ferment that shiv, you'll get around a 76% ethanol yield. So then you take, and admittedly, when you're using it for fuel, that carbon then does get emitted again, but it from a yield perspective alone, you're getting nearly a double the amount of yield from the same amount of product. And then you look at hemp producing 4 times the biomass of a forest in its same size, in its same time. So it produces 4 times the amount of that material that we can then produce the ethanol from.
So if you're producing 1 field of rapeseed oil, you're going to get, let's say you've got, let's call it 100 parts field, you're going to get 45% of that will be rapeseed. Now, if you've got the same 100 parts field, which is hemp, you're theoretically got 400 parts field because there's 4 times the amount of density in the crop. And then 75% of that ends up being usable product. So 75% of 400 is about 300. So you've got 300 to 45, which is approximately 7 times the active usage. So you're getting so much more from the product. And this is what I wanted people to start thinking about. How can something so dangerous be so beneficial in one thing? Like if you take all of these singulars, like if one other product on the planet was that beneficial, it would be pushed. But you have this one product which is beneficial across a multitude of different avenues, which has got so much benefit to add to the world. It doesn't really make sense why it's not being pushed. Rapeseed can only be used for biofuel. Apart from that, it's called rapeseed because it rapes the soil it grows on. It's
you can't grow it in the UK now. Everyone's oilseed rape crops have failed because
oh really?
Really? It's 3 years on, 3 years off as well with rapeseed, which is another thing which people don't bear in mind. When you're growing a rapeseed, that yellow rapeseed, it's 3 years on, 3 years off because of the damage it does to the soil. Even Glastonbury has a fallow year, 1 year off. Hemp, I've never known that. Like I know a lot of cannabis farmers in America. Jamie is, my hemp farmer friend, but I've never heard of a hemp farmer talk about, I've got to have my year off, because that's another thing. Yeah. I feel like hemp can literally be cycled every single year and it doesn't cause the detriment to the ground, which all these other crops do.
Exactly that, Ollie. I mean, from a regenerative farming perspective,
bad, isn't it?
Hemp's
not
a
bad
great. Yeah, no, mate, you've got it in one because hemp is a great crop in the rotation. So it decreases soil compaction because it's got such a high root mass, and that therefore naturally increases the attenuation capacity. So that means it can hold more water in the soil. So that reduces flooding on a large scale, but it also means that crops have got access to more water, more moisture. But it also increases the aeration, which means that crops grow more. So where we grew last year, the follow-on spring barley crop, there was a 15 to 18% increase in yield purely because hemp was grown in that land the season before.
Amazing.
And there was the farmers I worked with, well, the farmers I still work with, but they said you could take 100 different farmers to this, show them this field, and not one of them will believe that it hadn't had any nitrogen on it. And that was purely because of the effect of the increase in yield because it had been grown after hemp.
Now, Jamie, I didn't know we were going to go down this route. I'm finding it absolutely fascinating, to be honest with you. Is this generally known, or are you sort of like a pretty small voice in the wilderness and people are just not cottoning on to this, no pun intended?
I think, there's a global interest in hemp at the moment. Yeah. I like that.
A little bit slow.
There's a global interest now, and I think basically, I suppose it's the reason when went all into hemp and cannabis as an industry is because I do believe it is the solution that we need for multiple different problems. And
let me ask a really sharp question, Jamie, and this is coming with wearing firmly my punter's hat. It is completely legal to grow a field of hemp.
Only if you have a license. Only if you have a license from the Home Office. Right.
But as long as you have the license, you've gone through the correct channels, it's completely legal. No one comes along and tries to burn it down and say, what are you doing?
No, absolutely. As well, okay. Part of your license, you have conditions on your license, Russ. So one of those conditions, if you like, one of the main overriding conditions is that anything you cultivate in the UK must be an EU approved cultivar strain, and it has to be below 0.2% THC, which is one of the the main control cannabinoid in the UK. So those are your two critical parameters. And then as a farmer, you then have the Home Office will come out. It's a department of the Home Office. They'll come out and they'll take some samples in your field. Just at random. You never know where they're going to sample, when they're going to sample. They usually tell you a few days before, just so you can make sure they're in the right place and they've got the right fields. But they'll come and take the samples, and then those go to a laboratory and they're tested to confirm that your crop is compliant and below 0.2% THC.
Right. Got it. Okay. All right.
What do you, so back onto this, we're on this topic, we might as well carry on about it. Let's talk a little bit about the Home Office. So you have this license to, so basically, like everyone knows, I'm Ollie. I make CBD products for a living. I call myself an infusionologist. I create products that actually work. That's what I do. Now, without people like Jamie, so people who grow, people like the actual growers who grow hemp, who grow cannabis, who run extracts, who then produce cannabinoids, I'm useless. Okay, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm literally just a dude who makes products. So without the ingredients to play with, I'm useless. Now, Jamie's hands are tied in the sense that he can't actually produce the extract which I play with. And this is also something which I wanted to talk about because it's a massive shame because, Jamie's got currently, in the ground, 1,700 acres of licensed hemp farm in the UK. So he has enough hemp space in the UK to grow 5 times, 6 times the amount of hemp which is needed, cannabis which is needed to produce CBD for the entire UK population, reducing the carbon footprint of every single drop which we take. Also with UK laws in place when it comes to cultivation laws and agricultural laws. In America and in China and all over the world, that everyone grows based on their laws. Now, there's this whole chicken debate at the moment. I know it's not growing, but it's food, and the way chickens are treated in America are very different from the way chickens are treated here. And the way we grow our fruit and vegetables here in the UK are very different from the way fruit and vegetables are grown in other countries. Now, Jamie has to abide by these strict government agricultural guidelines. However, he's prohibited from creating and extracting the product which I produce products for all of you with. Okay, that was actually amazing. Well done, Ollie. So basically, I want to kind of talk about that because that is a massive issue. If I could buy my CBD from Jamie, what it does is it makes the UK market self-sustainable. And at this moment of time, we're not a self-sustainable market. 99.999% of all the CBD which is used on the UK market comes from abroad. All right, there's 0.01% of people who might break the law to create their product, but they're not going to get anywhere. If you want to have a product on the shelf, you need to have a compliant extract,
auditable trail, absolutely.
And the thing is, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, Jamie, because this is so important. It's important for our followers to kind of know that, our followers, our listeners, to know how restricted both of us are. Because why wouldn't I want to buy CBD off of you? As in, you're my buddy, number one, and B, number two, you're local. As in, you know how annoying it is when your shipment of CBD gets held at customs. Do you know how annoying it is to call up, to call up the customs, whatever they're called, I can't remember what they're called, British Customs Forces, and say, look, by the way, I'm not a drug smuggler. Okay, what you have in stock is completely legal. Here's all the documentation. They're like, 6 weeks, we'll get back to you. So you're sitting with 25, 50 grand sitting in a warehouse for 6 weeks. you got to find another 50 grand to keep your orders going.
Now, is that because they just don't like you? I don't mean you. They don't like the trade. Is that pressure from? I'm not a conspiratorial guy. Is that because big pharma's saying slow all this stuff up? Why are they calling that? Why is it so slow, Ollie?
Not me, Jamie.
No, you. Why is it so slow to get your stuff in?
No, I mean that's anything with customs, Russ. Any dealing with customs is if you've got something held, it's going to take you 4 to 6 weeks to get it unheld potentially for them to respond.
When you've got a kilo of what looks like cocaine, which tests up as what tests up like cannabis, you're going to ask for a trouble. So I've had police show up at my house before with a white bag and be like, I was like, all right, mate, what's the issue? And they go, you're trying to import, cocaine cannabis. I was like, what is cocaine cannabis? They're like, well, it looks like cocaine, but it tests like cannabis. And I was like, all right, guys, why don't you come in? I make bath bombs for a living. Okay, come and see my bath bombs. Come and see my bombs.
No, Ollie, the part that the police are going to hear when you say that is that I make bombs for a living. That's going to make the situation even worse.
I offered a policewoman a CBD bath bomb, and her words were, "Are you trying to bribe me?"
There's a CBD bath bomb for you. That's CBD,
there it is.
CBD bath bomb.
Very cool.
But no, Ollie, exactly.
Jamie, take the mic. Take the mic and just teach us about the Home Office.
So we're not allowed to use the flower and the leaf from the hemp crop in the UK. It's not actually a legislative requirement, but it's a condition that's put on our licenses by the Home Office. From my point of view and perspective, it's a bit of a no-brainer. We've got post-Brexit, post-pandemic recovery going on. Why would we not allow the UK hemp industry to supply the UK CBD industry? For exactly Ollie's points, it's about we've got a very high level of compliance here in the UK. I come from an analytical background. I love data, I love science, and I love making sure we test at every different stage. And I know Ollie's is exactly the same mindset.
Yes, you're very similar in that regard. Very similar.
If we just allow the UK sector, the agricultural sector, to utilise that fraction of the plant as well, because it won't just be about CBD, but it's a part of the plant we're currently having to destroy and dispose of and throw away, which makes no economic or environmental sense in my mind, when we've got a 330 million legal CBD industry in the UK, and we've got a legal hemp industry in the UK, but that hemp industry has to destroy the bits of the...
I have to take this because it's about my dog's operation. You carry on.
That's fine.
No problem, Russ.
Is he? He's not taking us off mute. No, he has now. Brilliant. I was like, are we going to know what happened to his doggy?
I hope he's all right. I hope he's
okay. I heard that my doggy was sick last week. He's okay now. Russ's dog was still sick last week, but I hope he comes back with good news.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Do you have a doggy?
Yeah, I've got a dog, a Chow Chow Marley. He's a brand ambassador for CBD Me, but yeah, he's a big cuddly like teddy bear. He's great fun. Yeah,
that's another thing. Jamie's got his own brand. It's called CBD Me, as in like by all means buy his products, man. The guy's an absolute G, and I support him. Give him as much energy as you guys can. Tincture Club might sue me for that, but I mean, so it's all good.
No. And again, if anyone's interested, we're doing that little pitch. If anyone's interested in sustainable hemp face masks, CBD Me selling sustainable hemp face masks, far better option, thermodynamically better than your plastic alternative that you're walking around the supermarket in with currently.
Another thing is all this hemp stuff is theoretically biodegradable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like if you create this hempcrete, or you create hemp plastics, or you create hemp fiber, hemp rope, it's not going to fill up landfills. It degrades with time.
It's absolutely so. It's like any sort of sustainable or any environmental. If it's a bio-based product, so put it into the right environment and it will stay in that specific state for as long as you need it to. Take it out of that environment and put it into a compost or put it into an anaerobic digester, and then absolutely you can produce other products from it.
Which is also, it's crazy. Like Julia just turned around and said, seems crazy not to allow it to be used here.
I mean,
is that your doggy?
Yeah, sorry, nice. Yeah, he's right on cue. He's kicking off now. In fact, you can nearly see him behind me on the stairs.
Hey, buddy. So like Julia just said, seems crazy not to allow it to be used here, and it is literally mental, isn't it? Like it's like you're shackled. You're literally shackled, aren't you, Jamie?
For the flower and the leaf, yeah. I mean, we've got no choice. Like I say, I've I've got CBD products that I have to import all of my products from Europe or from the US.
So you've got a field full of hemp, and even
Oh,
you
yeah.
are not allowed to use your CBD in your products.
Zero chance. No, we don't.
And if you were, you would lose your license, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no.
This is red tape at its worst, isn't it?
It
This
doesn't
is
make
absolutely
sense.
Yes Minister at its worst.
It's the worst. Now, the thing is, you mentioned something, Jamie, about how the fact that it's not even a new license they have to give out. It's literally just a reclassification of the license you've received.
Yeah, so what it is at the moment, the Home Office Department that issue the license is the Drugs and Firearms Licensing Unit. But obviously, most stuff they deal with is a fairly big deal. It's drugs and firearms, but industrial hemp falls under their jurisdiction. And at the moment, it's their guidance and therefore the guidance they work off and the conditions that they then put on hemp cultivation licenses that say you can't use a flower in the leaf. The actual legislation is already legislated to allow you to grow the cannabis because of the license. It's just the conditions they put on it that can't allow the flower and leaf to be used. If they change that guidance alone, it doesn't need a change in law. The legislative framework's there for the issuing of the license. It's just the guidance and the conditions they put on it.
It's mental because there are a few farms. I'm not going to mention any of them because well, why should we? But there are a few farms who have been shut down and who have gotten a lot of trouble. Yeah. And fact of the matter is it's like it's not even worth taking the risk. Like you would think you have an entire farm. How are they ever going to find out? But then fact of the matter is you can't even risk it. And the work you're doing is so valuable to the actual world. I mean, like just the beneficial factors of what you're dealing with. I mean, it doesn't make sense why anyone would. It's like, for example, everyone's walking with crutches and some homie brings in a wheelchair and everyone's like, oh, if you bring in a wheelchair, there are rules. It's just like, doesn't make sense. It's just like, like we are crushed as a nation. Okay. We are literally, we cannot stand by ourselves. And we, especially as a CBD market, we're reliant on everyone else around us. We're one of the biggest CBD markets in Europe, if not the largest consumer of CBD in Europe is the UK. And all we're doing is making countries around us super wealthy. And we're making countries around us super rich. Now, if it was a tax thing, I get it. Because, you pay your import duties when you come. The tax you would pay on your harvest would be 10 times more than the 15, 20% import duties I pay on my product, which I claim back against VAT anyway. So, I mean, like it's, I claim back against tax anyway. So, I mean, it just doesn't, it doesn't make sense. I mean, like even from a sheerly economic perspective, when only thinking about the money, like all politicians and government leaders do, I mean, even just thinking about the pounds, like that should be the only reason, let alone freedom and let alone saving the planet and all the things which politicians don't really care about. If it's just about the cold, hard buck, they should still make
Is there a pressure group? Because you two guys are very passionate and you're very knowledgeable about it. Is there a pressure group or something that keeps going back to the powers that be and say, guys, let's just look at this again? And, ladies and gentlemen, can we just sit down and discuss this? Or is that a closed door? You're not looking hopeful with that.
I'm gonna withhold my comments there.
Listen, we had the EIHA, we had the European Industrial Hemp Association, but unfortunately we're out of Europe now. So now we're out of Europe. The governing laws which were previously there are not there. So, for example, in France as well, the same sort of laws exist, but you're allowed to ship your biomass out of the country. So in France, you're not allowed to run extraction, but what you can do is grow, ship it out to Colorado, and then do the extraction. You can't even do that here. As in, if you're caught harvesting a plant with a hemp flower or cannabis flower, which is the main part which contains the cannabinoids, you're breaking a ridiculous law. I mean, you're breaking a law which doesn't make sense. You can go to the shop and buy the extract, but you can't pull the extract from your plant. And you can go to a farm and import the extract, and he can import the extract to him personally, but he's not allowed to make it. And if he was to make it, he could go jail. It's mental. It's mental.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, for example,
I don't understand the lack of logic. I must see here.
The logic is you can go to the shop and buy mint, and you can make yourself a mint tea. But God forbid you pluck a leaf of mint from your garden, you're going jail. That's basically the logic. It's mental.
So that is a very, very good parallel. Think about that for a second. It's exactly the same. You can go to Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, pick up a pack of mint tea. Done. I grow mint in my outside, but I wouldn't be allowed to pluck it and put it in my cup.
What type of mint do you grow? Spearmint, peppermint.
How the hell do I
know? Chocolate mint.
It smells like mint. God knows. I don't know.
Slight pheno change, darker leaves, lighter leaves, wider leaves, narrower leaves.
Ollie. It could be an oak tree for all I know. It smells like mint. Yeah. It's mint. It goes in the cup. I pour hot water on. It's not too tricky.
No, I like it. So yeah, he's shackled. Poor Jamie, man. This poor dude is like. So Jamie, what do you actually extract on your farm? As in, so you're not allowed to make CBD. What do you actually do?
So at the moment, we're actually in sort of an R&D phase where we've done a couple of years of cultivation at 240 acres. That's about 233,648,000 cannabis plants, give or take. And
how many?
For
no, seriously, Jamie, how many plants is that?
233,648,000, give or take. Yeah. So I've grown
one plant for every 2 people in the UK.
Grown that last year.
Dear God.
Told you, the guy's a baller, man. This guy is a straight up baller. He's the biggest cannabis grower we know, but he doesn't actually extract anything, so he's not going jail.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, exactly. I can't extract
it. It's insane.
Wow.
Yeah. There's method to my madness. There's a reason this homie's here, man. He's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I love this comment from Nick Lynn. Fields of Dreams. Very good.
Fields of Dreams, yeah.
Well done, Nick. That's very nice. I like
if
that.
If you grow it, they shall come.
If you grow, from the Home Office and cart you off in the Black Mariah. Anyway,
no, not as long as you're doing everything right. I mean, that's the key. You got to play by the rules. You've got to be compliant. And equally, I mean, my big passion is to try and educate the system, if you like, and make constructive changes so we can improve the potential of hemp as a solution. There's variable different changes that could be made that would all have a beneficial effect to the industry, but equally you've got to do everything by the book and work for that change rather than try and do it prior to that change. But as far as what we do at the moment, we've like I say, we've cultivated, we've done lots of research, collated loads of data over the last couple of years, and at the moment we're looking to close investment very shortly. I've got a couple of final validation pieces to run with a couple of different universities. At that point, in essence, I've got a fully validated investor ready plan. Then we'll be looking to close 30 million investment into a primary processing, which will separate the fiber from the straw, fiber from the shiv, and then biorefine to produce green hydrogen, bioethanol, in insulation materials and construction.
This is why I find this conversation riveting, because I bet loads of people sitting there going, I bet he's got all this in his attic and he's just got lights on and he's hoping that he's going to grow all this stuff. And you're going through all this validation, then you're looking for 30 million invest. This is a very serious industrial scale movement.
If Jamie gets his way, he's actually going to affect the UK GDP. As in, like if Jamie is given every opportunity which he actually deserves and which we actually need as a nation, Jamie could actually increase UK GDP by himself, and that is freaking mental when you think about it.
That's that's plant one of 10 we want to roll out across the UK, Russ. So that's only site number 1.
The guy's special and he needs support, and the guy is like, Jamie needs support, and Jamie, is in a position where he's trying to make a difference for all of us, and it's really important that we support him, because the fact of the matter, people like me wouldn't be around without people like Jamie, and people like all of you would still be suffering without people like me, and people like me lean on people like Jamie, so theoretically you all lean on Jamie. So it's no really pressure. Important.
It feels like it sometimes. It's
not to put pressure on you. It's to put pressure on our listeners and our viewers to understand that this is a system, and the system needs to have everyone involved and needs to have everyone taken care of. Because right now, if the UK economy drops dramatically, and we decide, and the UK government decides to kind of increase import tax by 100%. Why? Because they can. Because they need the money. And if you're bringing something from abroad, it's all going to go up. CBD and all of the ingredients and all of the extracts we use and every type of cannabis medicine, which is kind of produced and like given to anyone in the UK, it's all going to go up in price. In fact, none of what Jamie's trying to do is make it go down in price, whilst also increasing everything else which he has to offer the UK. And this is all from one plant. He hasn't got this crazy idea like a Facebook or a Google. It's to take a plant that's been around for thousands and thousands of years and basically just pick up where we left off. Because 150 years ago, we were building rope and sails and, you know, like there's a lot of like random things which hemp was used a lot in medicine. And then we kind of took a break for 100 years and we are right back where we left off in Victorian times. You know, like basically that's what we still have is like we have those advances, and any new advance is still looking for backing. But what happens is you're always going to go against the big force. So there is big agriculture. Big agriculture is something you don't hear about as much as big tobacco and big pharma, but big agriculture is something. You've got the, what's it called? Monsanto or whatever it was called, the corn dude.
Monsanto, yeah.
Monsanto, exactly. I prefer the way I said it, but it's not his name. Basically,
you're saying it's
Monsanto,
an Italian wine.
No, but the corn dude, I mean, that is big agriculture. And what happens is you're going against that. Corn is used as a biofuel. Hemp is a better biofuel. That's the war you're fighting. You know, like you can get sugars out of hemp, you can get sugars out of corn. That is the war we're fighting. And it's hard when someone's trying to do something right and the word is demonized. You know, like it's hard because
think about this for a minute. Being a devout petrol head myself, if you'd have said 10 years ago that a guy with a crazy name is going to take on the car industry, build a car from scratch, there'll be no petrol involved, and it's going to be a global success, you would have said, Russell, you're bonkers. That's ridiculous. And then Elon Musk comes along, who is a visionary, whether you love him or you don't love him, you know, I think he's a genius. And he comes along and he says, I'm taking on the car industry.
And he loves cannabis.
It is possible. Either yes or no. But I mean, that's not the point. What I'm saying is it takes pioneers like Jamie. That's what I'm getting from this. This is what I'm deriving from this, is that it takes somebody with an entrepreneurial spirit, but a pioneer who can say, I can see what the future is. This is the future. This is what should be happening. And everybody else, you got to come along with me. And there's always going to be reluctance. And then with people who are as passionate as you two, and as articulate as you two, and as knowledgeable as you two, you will build the crowd. That's the thing. That's what I'm really getting from tonight's program. I didn't know any of this.
He's a great guest, isn't he?
You're a terrific guest. We'd love you back. Well, it's up to Ollie.
Happily come back on any time.
There's so much that I think we've all learned. Didn't know any of this at all. And
that's so important.
Russ, this is my biggest, I suppose, passion is it can all be done with the right education and the right factual, correct messaging, and then people's understanding about the solutions can really be delivered then. But until we break down, absolutely. I mean, I love having a voice anywhere to get across the right information, the right messages. And thank you both for the time and inviting me on.
Thank you.
Dude, you are awesome, man. You're literally incredible. The problem is that we need to do 3 more shows with you. That's the only issue.
We've missed 3/4 of the.
Look, if it's not talking to us, having to wear Wellington boots and, you know, get off my land and all of that stuff. So he's probably very happy to.
Every single week, I write a list of everything I want to discuss on the show, and every single week I cover about 6 points out of 50 on the list. And it's just literally, I'll go through my notes and I'm like, well, there's no time for that, and there's no time for that. Literally, we've got 1 minute left. So the main point we want to leave on today is cannabis and hemp are the same thing, and it's so important that the world starts to see this plant as what it is. It's a plant. That's all it is. It's one plant with thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not millions of uses. And thanks to people like Jamie, we're learning more and more about this plant every single day. And we have to continue. It's going to save the planet.
And the other key word that you two have come up with, which as we go up 25 seconds left, is this: demonization. if we remove the stigma, if we remove the demonization, you can see it for what it really is. It's a whole different ball of wax. Jamie Bartley, thank you so much for joining us. Ollie Mammon, freaking legend. That's all I got
Russ
to say.
Kane, the absolute G. 4 seconds left. I love you
4
all.
seconds. Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you very
you're
much.
both great.
Good luck,
You're both great.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care.
This is
All
Men's
the best.
Radio Station. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.